of a bill for an act to amend the Tertiary Education Trust Fund Establishment number 16/2011 to provide for additional conditions for assessing of funds for capital project by beneficiary institution, signing in the name of Honorable Abbas Tajuddin and Honorable Babajinmi Benson. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 5th July 2023. And I invite Honorable Benson to move that the bill be now read the second time.
I represent the good people of the Ikorodu Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to request that a bill for to amend the TETfund Act 2011 to provide for additional conditions for assessing of funds for capital projects by beneficiary institutions and for other related matters be read a second time. We request to amend Section 7. The intent is to ensure that universities who require to access this intervention fund show traction. So we are trying to include some condition precedents to draw down to ensure that the universities who apply or who intend to tap into this intervention fund will show a track record that they've done substantial developmental work in a university before they can access the developmental fund. So we're proposing that Section 7.5 should be amended to include 3 subclauses. I don't know if I can go through the clauses if you have enough time, or it's straightforward enough. Okay.
Just mention them.
So the first section is Section A. Is in the 3 years preceding the year of application, the beneficiary institution should have shown itself to have executed capital projects worth at least 500 million naira, 500,000 naira. The type, quantity, quality, and standard of the capital projects executed must meet the type, quality, and quantity or standard prescribed by the Act or its regulations. The beneficiary institution must show verifiable evidence of the existence of the capital project in the institution. The total cost, including variations of the capital project, shall be verified and certified by the Auditor General of the Federation in case of the federal institutions or the Auditor General of states.
The bill intends to let and have the universities show proof of what they are doing or what they have done relative to capital expenditure in the past. Assuming there is a new university that requires some fundamental support, just like a man looking for a job for the very first time, where will he get the experience from? What he is trying to do...
Sorry, please.
What we have tried to do with this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is to expose the weaknesses in supervision if the supervisory agencies, including committees of the House, do their job and do their work effectively and efficiently. There will be no need, because the track records will be readily available for all to see. Mr. Speaker, relative to Nigerian universities, all of us are aware of the very poor rating and ranking that were just released. If for whatever reason we deny our universities the opportunity to increase and improve their capacities in the next 5-10 years down the line, what will be the standards that we will have? Before now, Mr. Speaker, there has been need.
Honorable Abiante, is this, are you adding to the debate?
No,
because I heard it started with something but
I'm just raising my concern. I'm just raising my concern, Mr. Speaker. All universities have done their needs assessment, and we know what they require and what they don't require. Relative to funding, Mr. Speaker, most of the projects don't also have sufficient funds at every given point in time. So, tracking and having the records of achievements in terms of what they have done with what is available to them might be challenging, except we strengthen the capacities of the supervisory agencies and institutions.
I want to tell you that the problem of TETfund is the lack of capacity in most of these universities. TETfund is an intervention agency that clearly spells out that if you are giving funds, you must spend it to logical conclusion before you can assess the next one. It will surprise you that some are still battling with 2010, 2011, 2012 because of lack of capacity. The lack of capacity is from bill of quantities, from procurement, procedures. Mr. Speaker, I speak authoritatively as a former pro-chancellor and the head of tenders board of a university. So I'm talking from experience. You see bills of quantity being done that cannot carry out a project. So the lack and the required supervision is not there. In awarding these contracts, it's always skewed. So, Mr. Speaker, whatever it takes to ensure that we do the right thing, let us do it. I'm rising up to support that this bill should be seriously considered for the interests of this country, because TETfund is becoming an abandoned project agency.
I want to speak from a position of authority as a member of this House Committee on TETfund. Mr. Speaker, we've gone around all the geopolitical zones, visiting the universities in respect of the TETfund project. And Mr. Speaker, it will surprise you to know that a lot of universities, for years, have not been able to. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, it will surprise you to know that a lot of universities are not able to access the TETfund money. And the reason is a lot of conditions put up for them to meet before they access these funds, which has made it very, very impossible. And coming again to amend this act to further strengthen and add more conditions. Mr. Speaker, I think it's just like what my honorable colleague said. Someone who is looking for employment, and for you to deny him that employment, you are looking for 30 years experience and 50 years experience. Asking universities to submit their financial records and jobs they have done to Accountant General of Nigeria with enormous responsibilities he cannot even meet. It's just a way of saying that it's impossible for universities to access this fund. I want to appeal to my colleagues, honorable members, feeling the pulse of this country and knowing that education is one of the cardinal points of this present administration to achieve. There is need for us to relax some rules. We did it in the student funds. I think instead of bringing up stringent measures, we should relax the rules that will enable universities to access funds and bring up developmental projects. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal that we step down this bill and allow universities to operate and access the TETfund funds for the betterment of Nigerian education.
all tertiary institutions need our support, but that has made me, they must be transparent and accountable. This is an intervention fund that must be monitored and managed well. What the mover of this bill is trying to say is, when you're giving funds, whatever you did with the previous funds the previous year, you should account for it. It's like KPIs. Why should there not be transparency and accountability in our tertiary institutions? We need this country to move forward, and there must be accountability.
Rise this afternoon to lend my voice to support my colleagues that advise us to step down the bill. Let me lend my voice to the importance of making lighter laws for our agencies and our institutions to make them do their work diligently. Mr. Speaker, this morning you told us the importance of doing away with photocopying, paper hard copies to go electronically. And I don't see the reason universities cannot access this TETfund to enable them do their capital projects and the other projects. We cannot stand here to make laws more difficult. We can only advise them before they access that fund, they should get clearance from agencies that will supervise them to make sure that those monies that they are accessing is judiciously spent on what they are meant for. They are making laws that will make it more difficult for them to access funds. We have made so many laws in Nigeria, but to implement it, the executions were poor. We have good laws as they are. Let us comply with the laws we have that are making it more difficult for people to access what is rightly belong to them. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
This bill sounds very important, and it will make a difference in our tertiary institution, particularly looking at the accountability aspect of it. Using this innovative approach will enhance even competition in the institution to show the judicial utilizations of their budget and internally generated revenues that will give them an access to access the TETfund funding. It's an innovative way. It's a sound approach to amend this section and to bring in this new section so that it will encourage self-sufficiency in our institutions, accountability, and then self-discipline, so that this even honorable chamber will focus more on checkmating and oversighting their budget allocations, their implementations of their internally generated revenue. And this will give support to the institution to even encourage students in R&D, that's research and development funding, to show, because it's a way that they know for them to access the TETfund, they must show how they utilized their internally generated revenue and other funding, because we know that capital projects are so exorbitant that
round up.
budget alone cannot do it. So it's a very good development, and I concur with the mover of this motion, Honorable Babajinmi, bill, Honorable Babajinmi Benson, and call on colleagues to consider and speedy passage of the bill. Thank you very much.
My contribution in support of what some other colleagues have said would be that I do not oppose the bill, but I see a way that the bill, maybe at the committee level, would be retweaked. I'd like to draw our attention to the fact that TETfund Act already has guidelines to withdrawals from the Act for beneficiary institutions. Like we all know, is a delegated legislation, and they have designed stringent conditions to ensure that beneficiaries draw these funds in compliance with the dictates or intent of the Act. I'd like to let us know that over the past 3 months, the committee has been on oversight, and the problem has been that most institutions have not even met up with some of the stringent conditions, one of which is that until you exhaust the allocations for the current year, you are not entitled to take that of the previous year. So that has brought unassessed interventions on the fore. That is also not to underlook or overlook the issue of poor performance, uncompleted projects, because you are aware TETfund interventions don't have any space for variation. So I would also add that maybe at committee level, we'll look at ensuring that even as an intervention, the National Assembly has the mandate to appropriate the funds. If we don't properly oversight these interventions, then adding more stringent conditions may become even worse off. So I would want to add that we support this bill and let it come to the committee level. There will be public hearing where others will bring their comments and suggestions so that whatever drives better would sail.
Okay.
He's put in very deep thoughts to the ethos of this bill, and he's also understood and he has seen that our universities are going through challenging time. The Pro-Chancellor also confessed that during his tenure, he saw a lot of, the former Pro-Chancellor saw a lot of abandoned projects, and he also sat as the chairman of tender committees. He saw a lot of documents that didn't have proper bill of quantities and co. The essence of this bill, I must repeat myself again, is to ensure that these intervention funds being sourced and provided by the federal government of Nigeria cannot get to all universities in Nigeria. But they're just saying that the universities who have shown capacity, who have shown resilience, who have shown steadfastness, can use their track record to have a better chance than one university who has not done anything, who has just sat down and not expending the use of the resources they've afforded them.
Let me pause a bit and ask you this question. What happens if the university have not shown capacity and it's a new university? Would they not be entitled to TETfund? If a new university that is coming up, take off grants for universities,
No.
take off fund, and then, they grow, because capacities don't grow overnight, it's over a time. So for new universities, what happens to them and TETfund?
So that's a seed fund you're talking about. We're talking about TETfund that grants intervention facilities or grants to universities to develop further. We're saying because the funds are limited, it should go, so this would also foster competition among universities that let's utilize these funds properly this year so that we can use our track record to apply for more funding next year. I also like what the chairman of the committee said. She put it so elegantly that these rules and guidelines already exist, but they are in subsidiary legislation. Now, in the wisdom of Mr. Speaker, he wants to put the subsidiary legislation into the proper law, and I believe is the right way to go.
And I'm sure Mr. Speaker means well for the nation, and I'm sure Mr. Speaker will not be coming up with a bill that will not progress us from where we are to where we ought to be. It's left for the committee, when it is referred to them, assuming we will vote yes, believing we will vote yes, that the new universities, new institutions will not be discriminated against. As long as the fund will not discriminate against new upcoming universities, where the older universities that have shown capacity will drive larger percentage of the fund, and new universities like the ones some of us are proposing will not benefit from it. So let me ask, those in support of this motion say aye. Let me ask again. Those in support of this motion say aye. Aye. I was looking into your mouth. And those against say nay. The ayes have it.